Marhaba. Hello, once again, to our brothers and sisters around the world, friends of the Palestinian cause of justice, equality, and peaceful coexistence on their own land. Today is Tuesday, July 25th, 2023. I'm American writer and historian Jack Dempsey. With me is, as always, Muhammad Jihad Ismael, a Palestinian writer and historian from Gaza. Well, his family is from Shafir. He's been living confined as a refugee in Gaza for the last 15 years. And you've been living there even longer, Mohammed, because your family arrived in that area in 1948, very year of the massive ethnic cleansing that took place. So Mohammed and I, as you may know, are always trying to raise discussion topics around the Palestinians, their history, their culture and civilization, their ancientness on the land, the rich relationships they've always had with the peoples around them, including Jewish people. And Muhammad's own family are people who remember before 1948, when Jews, Muslims, Christians, secular people, they lived together in a human community that was as good or as imperfect as any other human community on the earth. We need to keep remembering that so that we can remember that it is possible. And Muhammad and I speak most of all together in the hope that it will come to pass before we seem to know it. So, although Muhammad always gives a good outline of the ridiculously difficult conditions of living in Gaza from week to week, especially from what he last time called the volcanic summer temperatures that pertain there, his family has been spending as much time as possible at the beach just to get some fresh air and some cool water on their uh, overheated bodies. And as we anatomize that situation, we always come to the question of, well, we think people might ask themselves, what can I do? What can I do? They're confined within barbed wire and tanks and missiles, and there's no way to get it. You can't even send them a book or an item of clothing, anything. You can't send them anything except through Western Union. That's how Muhammad and I have been running family to family. Get to that in a second. But first, write to your own government and demand the changes that are necessary to get this situation under control and reversed, because the foreign money that goes in there helping right now to support the Israeli apartheid government completely cuts off the Palestinians' past, present, and future. Second, practice BDS. Don't buy products that are produced in the occupied territories by Israeli entities. And instead, you might really enjoy looking up Palestinian olive oil, because you can get it via online services. It's some of the best in the world, and it would really help their people. The third way you can help directly is, as we say, family to family. Muhammad and I got to know each other a couple of years ago through a book that I published, and we've been friends ever since. And then we began to discover ways that, well, my wife and I, we could make a better life a little bit possible, Muhammad and his beautiful family. So please do go to Jack Dempsey Writer at WordPress.com, Jack Dempsey Writer at WordPress.com, and you can see photographs over the time that we've known each other, their original living conditions, and how those things have changed. He has two beautiful daughters that were born during the tenure of our friendship, and we also help with their nourishment, their vitamins, their well, keeping them healthy, because the conditions in Gaza are not designed to keep anybody healthy. Mohammed, on that note, I'll stop as always, but there's a few things we always need to do. So, hello, brother, and thank you for being here once again. I hope you're feeling cool and enjoying your new rooms and spaces. And anything you'd like to say? Front. Thanks.
Thank you, brother, for this wonderful talk. I am happy to be talking with you today and with our friends.
We've called this program here part two of a discussion we've been having on Benjamin Netanyahu, the current and longtime Prime Minister of Israel, rooted in a book that he published in 1993 called A Place Among the Nations, Israel and the World. So we're going to continue that discussion, that probing this program to see, as we say in our title, what has Netanyahu accomplished of his original vision as he wrote it in that book. And as Muhammad well pointed out last time, it's a book that it appears that ex-President Trump took a lot of his pointers and his ideas for how to make Israel and Mr. Netanyahu happy, and thereby, no doubt, deliver to him the American vote that are in favor of Israel as it is. So, Ahmed, I also think it's important for us to kind of report on current conditions. And you said that right now, while the 250, trucks per day that are allowed to deliver supplies into Gaza seem to be back to that absolutely inadequate normal. In other words, they are slowly starving the Palestinians of Gaza. That's the reality of it, the sheer mathematics of it. In our last program, or probably any of the others, and you'll see that is absolutely a true description. So the supplies are coming in back to that awful normal, Mohammed, but there are also shortages right now of electricity and other things that you mentioned.
Yes, brother. I think we are talking always about the same situation. There is no change at all. We have severe crisis in electricity. Now we have electricity for only 6 hours per day. As all the people are knowing, we have 250 trucks coming each day to Gaza, carrying goods, fuel for cars, fuel for the electricity plant, for the
bottled water, because they're bringing bottled water because the water in Gaza is poisonous, toxic, right?
yeah. It's a cancerous, not only poisonous. Yeah. In fact, this situation is reminding me with a classic novel written by the British novelist George Orwell. It was The Animal Farm. In fact, Jews or Zionists are making Gaza this very big open air jail. They are making it exactly like the Animal Farm, and they
where
are
some of the creatures are more equal than the others.
yes. This farm is sieged, is closed from all the dimensions. Every day you have very few amount of food. They bring it to you, and you have not to complain, to express your anger. Only you have this small amount. You have not to refuse. You have to be silenced. I think we have the same situation of this novel, George Orwell novel. Yeah, The Animal
And to
Farm.
say that things remain the same in Gaza means that every day they're worse because of these built-in shortages. We've said it many times. Do the math of 2.5 million Palestinians in Gaza divided by maybe 250 trucks per day, and it means that about 12,500 people must be supplied from one truck. You know that can't work. And it is not possible that the Israelis, the Zionist government there, it is not possible that they don't know that this is a prescription for complete malnutrition and even morbidity and early death. Muhammad wouldn't say it himself, but his own three small children, have been diagnosed with anemia. And he says that this is typical of almost all the children of Gaza. So half of that 250 of that 2.5 million people are children. This is the mass consequence of the starvation diet being imposed. And the only thing is, we're not sorry to remark this. The only thing that can remind you of is the diet that was ascribed to people in the German concentration camps of World War II. They were designed to keep them alive long enough to be worked to death. So that's the technique that is being applied here. And well, these conditions point right to the main question of our program, Mohammed. What has Mr. Netanyahu accomplished of his original vision? Just for the viewers' benefit, let me review a couple of basic facts. He was born in 1949 in Tel Aviv to a so-called secular Jewish family, spent most of his childhood and high school years in Philadelphia in the United States, graduated high school there. And we're told he did not like the hippie culture. He did not like the counterculture, as he was saying, when women took rights, Black people took rights, Native Americans began to be heard about, the environment was protected, that we were against the war in Vietnam. He did not care for that generation. So you can see he was growing up a fairly conservative person already. 1967, significant year for Israel. Netanyahu returned to fight in the war that was fought in that year. He reached the rank of captain, returned to the United States to become a graduate of MIT in 1976. And then as he waded into Israeli politics, he ultimately, most potently for his early career, became one of the guiding lights, you might say, or the guarding darkness behind the construction of the Palestinian Authority, the supposed organization that supposedly polices the Palestinian people and allows them to police themselves, doing the dirty work for the Israeli colonial forces. In 1993, Mr. Netanyahu became chairman of the Likud party, a right-wing faction in their government. He was a longtime friend of Fred and Donald Trump, even before Mr. Trump was in office. And like Mr. Trump in 2019, Mr. Netanyahu was indicted by the courts for different kinds of corruption, which he has in common with Mr. Trump presently, as the whole world knows. It seems, though, that well, Netanyahu has what they call a tin ear. He does not seem to have any idea of how he sounds when he speaks and writes. And I'll hand it over to you, Muhammad, but I remember we mentioned last time, he writes in his book, 1993, A Place Among the Nations, he was angry that Britain had, quote, promised the whole of Palestine to the Jewish people. The whole of Palestine was to be going before only Jewish people. He's disappointed that this promise was not kept. Or was it?
Yeah, in fact, he is a greedy. He is so greedy because the whole Palestine wasn't before governed by Jews. Even in the late Bronze Age, if we speak about the era of Joshua and his comrades who conquered Palestine, coming
They
from
were
Jordan.
historical, if they really
Yeah,
existed.
yeah.
There was a conquest there. Archaeologists
Yeah.
are not sure that it looks like the Bible story.
Let us suppose that this is true. Yeah. Even if this is true, in fact, in that time, in the late Bronze Age, Israel kingdom wasn't occupy all the land of Palestine, because
That's right.
they were occupying only the high land,
That's
what
right.
is known today the mountains of West Bank. In that time, you know that all the coast was occupied by the Philistines,
And
and its
this
name
is
was
not,
Philistia.
yes, this is not controversial. This is the agreement of every kind of archaeologist that you can name from any country of any period. They agree on this topography. Is Israelites and the Hebrews were in the inland highland country, and the Philistines and the Canaanites and other peoples were mixing along the coastland from roughly Gaza to a place called Dor now, which is where Tel Aviv is, I believe. So
Yes,
yeah,
in fact,
and
the finder.
Netanyahu doesn't even believe that these people existed in any sense. They were not a nation. They did not have a king and a flag and an army to go around conquering. So they don't count, I guess.
Yeah, so the Israeli kingdom in its peak wasn't occupy all the land of the historical Palestine, as
That's
you
right.
just mentioned. the southern coastal area was occupied by the people of the sea, the Canaanites, etc., and the northern part of the coast was occupied by the Phoenicians, and the northern part of the Palestinian highlands was occupied by the Aramic people.
That's right.
So even the historical Palestine didn't witness this kind of Israeli total domination before. Why he's requesting this total domination over Palestine territories? You
Well,
know,
Netanyahu is a man, then I think we can reliably assume, who would believe it when the Bible says there's a promise made to one of the Israelite prophets, and the Lord says, wherever the sole of your foot shall tread, shall be yours. And now they assume that because he walked probably to Gaza and walked maybe to Haram and maybe to the Far East and all that now the right, proper, correct Israel is from the sea at least until the Jordan River, probably, according to many, even further east.
In
Into
fact,
Iran.
In fact, even according to the Old Testament, they had planted 2.5 tribes in the East Jordan. They left 2.5 tribes out of the 12 tribes. They make their inheritance in the Eastern Jordan, to the east of the Jordan River. So even the Eastern Jordan, according to them, is a part of the Israeli land. Let me tell you again that he is greedy because history didn't witness before any kind of total Jewish domination over all the historical Palestine. This didn't happen before that.
Muhammad. So this is a Zionist idea. This is more part of Zionism rather than traditional Jewish belief.
Yes, of course. It's the expansion of Zionism and the Zionist thought. Yes. Even after the coming of Jesus, after the coming of Christianity, Palestine, along all the ages and centuries, was a home of coexistence in this land. The Muslim, the Jew, the Christian used to live all together in one homeland. So we hadn't this sort of Jewish domination over all the geography of Palestine.
Yes. So we have Netanyahu writing as part of his description of his vision for Israel. This is back in 1993, and later in the 90s, he revised the title to be A Durable Peace. So this is the kind of long-term thinking Netanyahu is having in his mind while he writes this book. He goes into the origins of Israel, which we've just touched on, the history of it, the politics of it. Would you say then that that part of his vision has come true? Are they not on a course to continue to expand Israel, to take the occupied territories altogether, to somehow clear out Gaza? What's going to happen? Why should we expect that they will be satisfied with anything? Do you think Israel will continue to grow and to conquer?
Yes, of course, because his thought is a thought of expansion, a Zionist expansion. Always he need more land, more and more land. He think it's not enough for him only to build his homeland on very brief amount of land. He need always to expand everywhere, to the east yard, to the north yard, to the south yard. He want always to expand this country. And let me tell you that right now, Israel doesn't determine any vision for its borders. Right now, they haven't constitution,
Right.
but but despite of this situation right now, they haven't any sort of documents, official documents, like determining their borders. So their borders are able to absorb more and more land. You
Yes.
know,
Why would they say it's here when they really want it to be here?
exactly.
Right? So now you just described, Muhammad, and very accurately as an historian, the cultural history of the Near East, that Canaanites, Philistines, Muslims, Christians, Jews, all of them lived together. That was the way of the world in that crossroads section of the world, right? So now we're talking about Netanyahu, a man that has a tin ear. He doesn't seem to know how it sounds, like Smotrich or some of the other people with El Ben Gavir. They don't seem to know or care how they sound to the outside world, which is talking about peace, cooperation, acceptance, toleration, right? He doesn't seem to know how he sounds. So why is it unreasonable for him to say in his book that, well, if you criticize Israel, if you say it's an apartheid state, it's not only being a hater of all Jewish people, it's anti-Semitic. You're picking on Israel. Look at the tyrannies in the Arab countries, he says. Look at the dictatorships and the oppression of almost all the Arab people in the Near East. Why pick out Israel as a place of injustice? What do you think of that argument?
Yeah. If you look to his book, I read so many dangerous things. First of all, I saw a very huge amount of racism. Always he used to call for racism. He refused any kind of coexistence, even inside this Israeli state. He doesn't accept the Arab people who are living as citizens inside Israel. Always he is calling for their transfer outside Israel. So he doesn't accept even the Arab minority inside Israel. Beside that, he is calling for hatred, for racism against the Arab neighbors who are living inside the neighboring countries, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, etc. Yeah. So I saw that he's talking a lot about hatred. He's calling for racism, and of course he has the thought of Bible that we are the chosen people, we are the people of the God,
Yes.
etc. And others are the goyim who were created only to serve us and to be servants for us. Yeah. Uh, 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 I want to say that in his book, I think the core of his book is the criticism for the left party of labor, the Israeli Labor Party. In fact, in this book, he used to criticize the policy of Labor Party, who used in that time to make negotiations with PLO in order to formulate the project of Oslo and the project of peace with Palestinians.
Mm-hmm.
In his book, he's rejecting the standard of the Labor Party, which is land for peace. He's rejecting this logic. He don't agree with this logic, which is land for peace. Instead of that, he is calling for an alternative standard, which is the peace for peace. So he is calling for peace, not land for peace. I
While,
am,
and he's saying that while they are taking the land. So it's
yeah,
an
yeah,
it's an expansionist policy that expects to have peace. It's a little bit
yes,
crazy. You have to be
yeah,
living in your own mind and paying no attention or respect whatever to the outside world around you. Now, let's compare for a minute, though. Let's be guided by fairness as much as we can. When Netanyahu says you're picking on Israel for human rights abuses with its apartheid, because you don't even look at the Arab government's tyrannies against their own people. Let me ask you, Mohammed, is it fair to say that most of the Arab countries have been in the pockets of either the Russians or the Americans because of the oil wars, because of the colonial history? In other words, in Egypt, for example, the Americans have long set up and supported dictatorships, very brutal, ugly, torture type governments of murder and violence, in order to keep control of that country's resources and the wealth from going to its own people. And this is what Israel is
Yes,
doing, it seems to me, by Netanyahu's organization of the PA way back in the 90s, because he expected, and he was proven right, that it would become a corrupt organization that would take any money and from resources and outside help that was available to Palestinians and keep it in their own pockets for themselves, so that the Palestinians would never be able to develop themselves and grow out of their incredible poverty. Talk about that.
yes, of course. Yes, of course. I think, or I believe, that most of the Arab regimes, most of the Arab rulers are puppets, just reflecting the American, the Western, the Russian planning or policies for the Middle East. I think they are tools. They are tools in the hands of those superpower countries. And I am not exaggerating if I say that some of them are intelligence agents for those superpower countries. For instance, the King of Jordan, the King Hussein, I think it's clear now, according to some leaks appeared recently from the American secret documents, that he was an agent for CIA, and he was an agent for M6, the British intelligence. And by the way, and by the way, his code name in the British intelligence was Mr. Beef. His name was Mr. Beef because he
Mr.
was very,
Beef?
very short. Yeah, looking like the can of beef. Yeah, his code name was Mr. Beef. Yeah, yeah. So we have so many Arab rulers who were more than puppets. They were agents, implementing
All
and
right,
applying the foreign policies.
so here is the difference then, it seems to me. That most of the Arab governments that are tyrants, that are oppressive to their own people, are agents of outside forces. But in Israel, is that the case? Who is forcing Israel to discriminate so horribly against the Palestinians? Who is, we know the Americans are financing it, and they probably would not be able to get away with most of it without American money and weapons. We know this. But is there a difference there then? Is there not more choice and decision on the Israeli government side to do this?
Yeah, I think they are forced by the Zionist project. They have a project established since the 19th century, and this project is progressing right now. I think they have a vision for the future. If we doesn't destroy our opponents, we will not achieve the upper hand. We will not guarantee our existence for the future. So always they are putting their neighbors under continuous pressure in order to guarantee their future. And
Yes.
if you look to the Israeli ideology, whether the military ideology or the civil ideology, always they have this kind of doctrine that we have always to put our neighbors under crisis and pressure, and we have to provoke their governments and their regimes to torture them, to stress them. If our neighbors feel comfort, they will start to annoy us, and they will start to think about the conquest of Palestine. So I think this is the ideology of the Zionist thought.
Now, Muhammad, I'd like the audience to know that you personally and the people that you draw your inspiration and learning from, the Palestinian people, they do not wish to destroy Israel. They want to live in peace in a state of equality and equal rights. While you have to buy bottled water because your water is toxic, they have bombed your water treatment plant, etc. There are swimming pools next to Israeli houses less than a few miles from the Gaza border. Now, you've said that they wanted to trade land for peace. Israel's moving the position with Netanyahu of so-called peace for peace. We will take the land quietly, but we expect peace for it. So where is it now? Is that not what he's doing? He's not even talking about peace anymore. Now it's quite open and naked, and even with the protests against his own government, where they want to take the judges of the Supreme Court and make them less important than the rest of the government, so they can do whatever they want without the rule of law. It's an immensely and relentlessly expansionist mindset. And Netanyahu's book is a part of the Zionist project, a part of the Zionist wave that is still pushing the apartheid government to do what it's doing, to expand, to repress the people that fall under your control. So is his book a success? Yes. Has his book succeeded, Muhammad? Is this Netanyahu's achievement?
Yeah. In fact, I believe that it's not a good book. It's a book of evil. It is calling for evil, not for goodness. In fact, I know this, but I think this book has succeeded right now. And Netanyahu, despite all of his internal crisis inside Israel, I think right now he has implemented the biggest majority of what he has theorized in his book. As I told you last time, most of the goals he determined were achieved right now. Most of the goals and most of the dreams he used to realize right now. If you want to speak about what happened in Gaza, Gaza is very, very sick, very sieged, weak, isolated like a deserted island in the far ocean. West Bank is fragmented into so many islands looking like the archipelago inside the sea. Golan Heights became formally a piece of Israel according to the American official documents, etc. Israel now has the upper hand after the destruction of the Arab armies during the so-called Arab Spring. Israel now is more powerful than the previous decades, and I think they have only one obstacle, which is the Iranian project in the Middle East. You know, Iran also is trying to harass Israel through Hezbollah, through some militias in Syria and Iraq. So I think it's the last obstacle in the face of Israel. After Iran, I think Israel will be living in a total peace with no threats at all.
Well, I guess as we get down under 5 minutes now, Mohammed, we have just another minute or two to each comment. I'd like to put it out to you that, as you've told me many times, the Palestinian wish is not to destroy Israel. They want to live in equality on the same ancient land as the Jewish people do, as they have always done. But let's conclude with an actual quote from Netanyahu's book. We want people to know who this man is and what he has done. He says the Palestinian question, he puts that itself in quotes as if there's nothing legitimate about it. They're animals, they're dogs. They should be made to go away or to obey or to die. All right, that's not his words, but that's the implication, and it's right out of the Bible, the Torah. It says the Palestinian question is only a Arab ruse. Is a way for them to hide their aggression and their wish to attack and destroy Israel. He says the only thing the Palestinians understand is force. And that's why it's a proverb now for the Israeli army. When force fails, use more force. This is the mindset that this man has helped to make normal. And I would like you to tell the world what it's like to live as the person being erased by that. Because it's such a reverse, backwards way of saying, I want to attack them, I want to destroy them. This must be a powerful thing to live up against, Muhammad.
Yeah, this is approving what I just mentioned. They believe that Palestinians should be always confronted by force and by military action. Yeah, I mentioned the same thing when I said that always they are planning to put Palestinians and Arabs under pressure, under crisis. Yeah, because they want those people, the Arabs, to be always suffering in their daily life, just thinking in their daily life, in their daily crisis, how to provide themselves with food, with medicine, with electricity, with those
And
simple needs.
these are openly made statements. We want Palestinians to have such a miserable life that they will want to leave. We
Yes,
want
of
them
course.
to
Yes, of
want to
course.
leave altogether. We don't want to see you anymore.
Yes, yes, of course. Yeah. In fact, this is what happened. Let me tell you, frankly, not all the Palestinians are believing that we have to live in coexistence with the Israelis. For sure, not all the Palestinians, but I think it's the biggest majority of the Palestinians because even here we have some extremist voices who doesn't believe in coexistence with Jews. For me as Muhammad, my response on Netanyahu's book is that contrary to his vision, contrary to his ideology, in fact, I believe in coexistence because we had this sort of coexistence along our extended history since the Jewish kingdom era right now. We have this and we had this coexistence. And in addition to that, let me tell you that who are Jews? In fact, Jews are the children of this area. They didn't came from Australia. They didn't came from Peru in Southern America. In fact, they are the children of the Middle East. They came from this land, from Levant, from Mesopotamia, Iraq. They are the children of this area. So they are welcomed, and we are welcoming them to live between us. In fact, they didn't came from Japan, from the
Right.
Aborigines of
Mohammed,
Australia.
it's going to
So
stop right now. The
yeah,
machine, our recording is going to stop
yeah,
right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Please write a letter to your government, practice BDS, and look here below and show more info about family to family to reach in and help Palestinian people. Mohammed, thank you, my brother. Again, it's such a pleasure to talk with you.